she needed us. It's different from what they are. We talk, she names are not normal.
Welcome to Strange Familiars, everybody. How are you doing, Allison?
I'm okay.
It's good to hear. I'm glad you're okay. It would be bad if you weren't okay, because you know why?
You should have picked up on it. We live in the same house.
Well, yeah. There's a.
This is a leading. This is. Oh, okay.
This was a yes and thing.
I can't do that. I ruined it. I'm sorry.
Because Albatwitch Day is coming up on Saturday.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't want to miss that.
Exactly. Hey everybody, Albatwitch Day is coming up on Saturday. You may have heard a few seconds ago. It's in Columbia, Pennsylvania, at the Columbia Riverfront. I believe the building is called Columbia Crossing.
Oh, that's the one you looked up because we couldn't remember the name of it?
I didn't even look it up. I just remembered it.
Oh.
But if you find Columbia and you find the riverfront, you can see the bridge from the Columbia Riverfront.
I promise you will not miss it.
Yeah, it's not hard to find. One of my favorite days of the year, Albatwitch Day. It's a great collection of people. I love meeting listeners. I love talking to everybody that comes out. It's going to be a chilly one, so bundle up. But we'll be there. I'll have books. I will have T-shirts, including the new Strange Familiars glow-in-the-dark T-shirts. We have them in hand. I will have art prints and more. John from Riverbend Comics will be there. He's going to be setting up, selling some paranormal-type comics.
And you're giving a talk, right?
I am giving a talk. It's going to be my Toad Road talk. I was going to do something on the Witch Cloud, but it kind of covers a lot of the same ideas. And
the location is a lot closer to Toad Roads.
Yeah, I think so. Years and years ago, like way back, like maybe the second or third Albatwitch Day, I did my Toad Road talk before. But there's so much new stuff I've added since then. So they requested that I do the Toad Road talk since it's local, and I'm happy to do it. It's probably my favorite talk of mine to give. So I'll be giving the Toad Road talk. We'll be hanging out all day, selling books, selling T-shirts, selling Strange Familiars, stickers and patches, and more.
Everybody knows what an Albatwitch is, right?
I think if they listen to Strange Familiars, maybe, probably. Albatwitch are our local little person, as they call them, our little hairy littlefoot. Let's call it a littlefoot.
Okay.
It's like a little Bigfoot. It's a hair-covered thing, maybe 3 to 4 feet tall. Glowing eyes, supposed to live in the woods along the Susquehanna in York and Lancaster County. It's sort of spiritual home is Chickies Rock, I guess, but
which is right up the road from Columbia, right?
Yep. But a lot of sightings in York County, especially lately. I think we have more sightings in York County in recent years than they've had in Lancaster County.
So he's crossed the bridge.
I think he was always here.
He goes over the old bridge or the new bridge?
He was always here. I found in an old book of folklore from Maryland a reference to a guy who saw what he was calling puckamawudgies, by description, small hairy things, just over the line in Maryland. And this is back in the 1800s, so they've been on both sides of the river and all around here. Albatwitch Day, October 8th, Columbia, Pennsylvania, at the Columbia Riverfront. Come by, say hi, hope to see you there. We'll be there all day, shivering in the cold weather.
If you'd like to see one of my many blankets.
Are you bringing a blanket?
Yeah, probably bring a blanket.
If you're not coming to Albatwitch Day, you want one of those glow-in-the-dark T-shirts, and I think you want one of those glow-in-the-dark T-shirts. You can pick them up on Etsy. They're in our Etsy shop now. We do have them in hand. Like I said, right now we have all sizes small through 3XL. Get them while they're hot.
They were actually regular T-shirts, and then we just took them up to 3 Mile Island and just left them in a box there for a couple of days, and then we just drove them back down.
Don't tell people that.
I was just kidding.
Like, oh, my. No, they're professionally printed with glow-in-the-dark ink. So on tonight's show, we're going to be talking with Casey, who's got a lot of really neat stories, including UFOs, nighttime invaders. She has a Littlefoot sighting from down on the eastern shore of Maryland. Stories about orbs, and then my favorite, which she saved for last when we were talking, is this frog woman she's seen multiple times.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Was the frog wearing clothes? Is that how you know, like, Do you see frog genitalia? How do you know?
I got into this with her.
Okay.
All answered in the interview.
All right.
Before we talk to Casey, though, next weekend is Strange Realities. Every year we tend to have Adam and Surf on to talk about Strange Realities. So we're going to have them pop on and give us a little preview of what's going on with Strange Realities, who's speaking there, and more. So let's go ahead and talk with Adam and Surf. Adam and Serfiel, Conspirinormal. How are you doing tonight, guys?
Doing well,
Doing great.
Tim. Thank you for having us.
Strange Realities. What number is this?
This is going to be number 4.
The fourth one. Wow, time
Mystical
flies.
number
Yeah.
4.
Yeah, you were part of the first one, and you've been part of all of them.
Yeah.
The second one, of course, everybody was remote. You were remote for the last, 2021, and remote for this year. But we flew you out here back in 2019,
Oh, yeah.
back in the day, pre-pandemic.
Yes. I remember I had smashed my knee the night before on a Bigfoot investigation. I had to
Yes,
hobble
I
through
remember too.
many airports.
Yeah, that was an adventure for you, I think.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
been the first time you've been on a plane for,
Long time.
I think you said like several years. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Before that, it was probably the year 2000 or so that I was on a plane.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So, Strange Realities, this wonderful conference that you've had for 3 years in a row. This will be the fourth, as you said. Who's showing up this year? Who's talking?
All right, so we've got several great speakers this year. Of course, you are one of them, Tim, for sure.
I'm closing it out.
You are closing it out, and as I like to say, we're actually going to start with a Tim and end with a Tim, because at the very start of it, we have Tim Banal, who's going to be talking about the Yuba City 5, and I'll just kind of go down the list of the people that we have this year.
Yeah.
We'll talk about who we actually have in-house. Samantha Engel and Aaron Gullius from the Great Lakes Lore podcast. And also Aaron is on the Saucer Live podcast. They're going to speak on Friday night. And we've got Ren Collier. He's going to be doing a ritual on Friday night as well. And also on Friday night, this is on October 14th, by the way, we have, and this is all in-house, we have a film that is going to be shown by Chris Ernst that is about, you know him, and I know him, Soraya Askath of Where Did the Road Go?
And it's a world premiere of this film.
Yes.
And Chris will be there talking about it, and Soraya will be coming in remote to talk about what it was like to be the subject.
Right.
It's about Soraya, but it's about Where Did the Road Go and like kind of the paranormal stuff. It leans heavily on that aspect of it.
Saturday the 15th, we got a full roster of people coming to the conference and speaking. Starting off in the morning, Delaney Bowers, who is a folklorist from Kentucky, and she's going to be talking about it's like a treasure hunting type of thing.
Yeah, she's doing
Manifestation.
She's doing like this ritualistic study and preparation for her presentation, where she's going to be kind of going on a treasure hunting psychic quest, and she's going to be documenting that and detailing it, and she's deep into some of this treasure hunting legends and lore right now, so that's going to be pretty wild.
She's on the Strange Familiars Discord. She was talking a little bit about it on there.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Good. And following her is Chris Ernst, who's going to be speaking, and he is going to be talking kind of like a follow-up to his presentation last year, which is kind of about these Indian holy men traditions. That's what he's going to be talking about. And after lunch on Saturday, we have 2 workshops. We have one by Kiki Dombrowski and one by Michael Hughes. And Kiki is going to be doing kind of like a hands-on
Like a
type of thing.
DIY crafting for divination tools and simple kind of magic that you can do just using some basic craft materials. So that'll be really cool and participatory. Then Michael Hughes is going to be doing a tarot workshop. We really wanted to do something different this year and have some workshops and a film and Ren doing like a ritual and really trying to switch it up. to do something different besides just a usual presentation. So we're really looking forward to those workshops. It'll be a nice opportunity for people to work together, meet each other, hang out, and do something fun.
And after that, we've got Steve Berg. He's going to be talking about some of the weirdness that is going on in his native Nebraska.
A true pioneer in Nebraska Fortean studies.
I mean, when you think of weirdness in Forteana, do you think of Nebraska? Steve Berg is going to change that for you.
Heck yeah.
And we've got Recluse from the Farm Podcast going to be following him. He's going to have an interesting presentation as kind of like about some highways and roads and Indian mounds and all kinds of interesting stuff. After dinner on Saturday night, we've got in succession Nathan Isaac from Pennyroyal. We've got Adam Gorightly going to be speaking, and John Tinney, who is going to finish us up with a choose your own or make your own conspiracy theory
adventure
thing.
It's a powerful lineup.
Yeah, so another cool participatory, fun, different kind of presentation to end the night. So that Saturday will be really, really active.
And on Sunday, we've got kind of a nice low-key day. We start off with a couple of speakers, one of which is sitting right next to me right now, Serfiel, is going to be speaking. Debut at Strange Realities. I got to have my chance last year. He gets his this year. And Olaf Phillips is going to be the last kind of like live speaker, in-house speaker. Then after that, we've got a set of 4 remote speakers with Melody Blackthorn, who's going to be talking about some ideas she has about the Bell Witch, which of course is here in Tennessee. David Metcalf and Micah Hanks, and of course yourself, Timothy Renner.
All right. So what's that? 3 full days?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So where can people find it? Where can they get tickets? Where do they tune in if they're remote? Where do they go if they're local?
You can find tickets at strangerealitiesconference.com. It's $70 to come here to Nashville and get into our venue that we've had for the last few years, which is called SIR Nashville, which stands for Studio Instrument Rentals. They do just that, but they have also sound stages and internet access for us to stream this thing remotely, so they can go there. Our $30 for the online stream. And we do have a special for people that if they are in the Nashville area, Middle Tennessee, or just Tennessee, if you want to come out for a day, you can pay $30 for just the day rate. That's also something people can do. But for the online stream, we're going to have like a private Facebook group that you guys can get in. When you buy your ticket, you'll get a link to that. You'll need to answer a couple of questions that you bought your ticket, and we will let you in the group.
Did I hear you say there's going to be a non-Facebook option as well?
Yeah, we'll have a non-Facebook option for people that don't want to use Facebook.
Because I know of at least one Strange Familiars listener. He just keeps saying every year, I wish it wasn't on Facebook. It's good that there will be options as well, and they can just contact you regarding that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Give the website one more time.
strangerealitiesconference.com.
Thanks so much. Thanks for putting on this event. Thanks for asking me back. All right, we'll see everybody October 14th to the 16th at Strange Realities.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. Make sure to check out their podcast, Conspirinormal. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. Next up, we have Casey. We're talking with Casey, who's got some stories to share with us. How are you doing tonight, Casey?
I'm doing okay. Doing great.
Thanks for coming on Strange Familiars. So your email said that I guess you found some stuff in Alex's story from the Uaris episodes that
I did.
You found familiar.
It took me aback. And, in my email, I told you I really sat with it for a minute because even as he was kind of going through it, that whole spider web of stuff, and as he's talking, it just started, all of these things started coming back. And not that I forgot them necessarily, but it was definitely a wow moment for me. So the biggest thing being, as I think it was in the second part, he relayed the green egg-shaped glowing craft.
Yeah.
And that completely like took my breath away. You know, I travel a lot for work, so I was driving and I had to stop. I'm like, get out of here. So, because I can't tell you how many times, you know, I tried to Google it and figure out. So we live on the eastern shore of Maryland, and quite literally about maybe a mile and a half down the road is the regional airport. And so we're used to hearing and seeing things in the skies and can pretty much just wipe it away if I do see something strange, you know, it's an airplane or whatever it is. And we have an old farmhouse, and actually quite a bit as I wrote to you, you know, this morning, and I was thinking about everything. All of my really intense or formative experiences have happened at this house or within a 3 to 5 mile radius of this house. So talking about Alex's experience in that green craft, I could have sworn it was just there. It was hanging out on the horizon. And I wanted to say it was a blimp, but you can't find a glow-in-the-dark blimp anywhere. I Googled it.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't exist. Like, so it was that deep phosphorescent green, but you know when you first crack open a glow stick?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that whole thing just kind of shines at you. Like, that's what it was doing. And I don't want to say it had this undulating pulse to it, but it did. And I'm like, let me go see if anybody else is around. So I run inside to find somebody's in the family, but I couldn't find anyone. And it took me, I don't know, I went inside for maybe all of 10 to 15 seconds and it was gone. Yeah. So just for him to have seen that. And then
when you saw it, how old were you?
I was about 16 or 17 years old.
And what were you doing when you saw it?
Well, I live in the country. There's not much else to do. So I was quite literally just like hanging out on the front porch, you know, seeing if anybody was around, but nobody was because, like I said, we're out not too far in the country, but far enough. I don't even know how it appeared in the sky, but it was just there almost. Now that I'm going into that memory, and there was nothing on it. There was no flight deck or cockpit area. And this was probably around 8 o'clock in the evening. So it was dark, but it wasn't pitch black dark. It wasn't like this was a midnight kind of a thing. And we also have a local minor league baseball team. So their stadium is also, I would say it's about 2 to 3 miles north of the airport. So I'm like, well, maybe they had some kind of glow-in-the-dark blimp event. I don't know. I was just trying to rationalize as much as I could. But at that point, especially given this house, that was probably the least weird thing. Really? That has happened, yeah, at that house. I have so many experiences, and who knows if they're connected, and I'm sure that they are all kind of woven together, but I just, in listening to his story and then having it resonate with things that I went through, especially, like I said, just the biggest one being the green craft, within like a 3 to 5 mile radius of this house. And even listening to you and Josh talk with Alex about, and you just talk to other folks through in your podcast and Strange Familiars about, well, was there moving water? In all of these places, there's been moving water. And it's even, Tim, right up to the house I'm in today. And the strange part about the house today is that this is the furthest away that I've been from like the nexus of my experiences. And there's been some wild things happening here in the last like 3 to 6 months. But anyhow, going back to those kind of formative things and connecting them to Alex and just having those stories kind of all come together. I remember my first sleep paralysis and lucid dream. I was probably about 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
And people keep telling me, sorry to interrupt you, but people keep telling me that they had this when they're young, which I mean, I totally believe them. But I didn't get it till I was 18, maybe 19. And it
Really?
was horrifying at that age. I cannot imagine being a little kid and having to deal with sleep paralysis.
Terrifying.
Wow.
Terrifying.
Wow.
And so not only did I have sleep paralysis and did I see entities in the room. So funny, this, I told you I wanted to check with my family before talking about the family house.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, my mom and she was a single mom raising me, the first 9-10 years of my life. And so I'm relaying these things to her, and she's this like confirming, and she's like, Casey, she's like, you've always been haunted. She's like, we've always been haunted. She's like, I remember your great grandmother walking down the hall and going into your room to quiet you when you were crying because you woke up from a nap. She's like, and she had been dead for 12 years.
Wow.
So, it happened at that house. So that house, my grandmother's house that we were living in when I had my very first sleep paralysis, is about 2 miles away from the family house where a lot of those other the most formative experiences happened. So it kind of hit me today how, who knows, maybe the family house was drawing us all in. We were eventually getting there. I don't know, but all of this happened so close together. But yeah, at 5, I remember seeing entities in the room, and those were gray. And then as I got older, at the same house where I saw the craft, the entities turned black. Just absolutely terrifying. So I wasn't scared of them when I was younger. I was scared that I couldn't move, but I wasn't scared of what was in the room per se. And then I've always been able to come out of my body. And it feels wild. I feel like I sound crazy when I talk about those astral projections. I now have a word for it, So I remember even as a child, if I wasn't in a sleep paralysis episode where, I couldn't move, but I could see everything happening in the room, I distinctly remember coming like out of my body and seeing myself sleeping and being able to like move down the hall before I would be like zapped back into my body. Yeah. Ultimately, the furthest I could go when I was young, I made it to like the front yard of my grandmother's house. I could stand in the street and see my neighbor's house across the street, and then, I'd be zapped back. So I've always had that ability, and I still have that. I think I just had the almost, 3 weeks ago was my last one.
Wow. So can you do it at will?
So I've tried that where I would, try to center myself and when I fall into sleep, I will know. So not that I can necessarily like push myself out willingly very well, but I will know when it's going to happen. And so it's almost like the sleep paralysis, because it will start to scare me. I'll take control of that. And I learned how to, this sounds so nuts, Tim.
It's strange familiar. It's all right.
Yeah, hey, right? I learned how to effectively, like, I guess my astral self will sit up in my body and then I'll roll out.
Oh, interesting.
And that way, because the other ways that I was doing it, it only happened once where once again, sounds absolutely bizarre, but I came out of the top of my head instead of coming out of the center of me, I guess, so to speak. And that scared the living hell out of me, because it also went with like this boom. Like it felt like I exploded, and it sounded like I exploded out of my head. So I was only able to get out of it that one way. And so, of course, in trying to figure out what the hell was going on with me, I realized like this was a thing, and you could practice and like make yourself, sit up or, all of these different types of process and procedures, I guess, when it comes to that. So
what did these gray entities look like? Are we talking gray aliens, or are you talking just they were gray?
When I was younger, these gray entities, I wouldn't say alien. They were kind of formless. Like I couldn't distinctly see any facial features, but I could see the head and neck and shoulders. I could see just a gray being there.
Mm-hmm.
And then at another time that I saw them, it was like they were formless again, I guess humanoid in shape. They kind of were like beckoning me to come out and through the door in this weird kind of swirly vortex of a portal kind of a deal.
Wow.
Yeah. But, you know, is that my dream world mixing with whatever? I don't know. I just know that those things kind of, they happen for me, and they've always happened for me. It's always been something that.
And they turn, you said they turn black later.
Yeah. So, you know, moving into the family house, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say it that way. In moving to the family house, and so when I say the family house, it's myself, my mom, my stepdad, and my two brothers. It was initially just a 2-story farmhouse. And of course, you know, what did we want to do? We wanted to renovate. And it kicked off all kinds of crazy things. So effectively, once we were essentially done building, myself and my youngest brother had the 3rd story. And so my room was towards the back of the house and his was towards the front. That was, and continues to be, the most terrified I've ever been. In the sleep paralysis, in the lucid dreaming. So I learned how to roll out of my body so that it didn't feel as scary. But at the family house, I was yanked out of my body every time. It wasn't anything nice. So those entities there, I remember, so there was several different types, and they were always above my head, and they would look almost like black, swirly, smoky spiders. And they would be small, and there would be numerous of them. I would say, you know, up to like 5 or 7 of them. And they would grow. And not that they had 8 legs. They might have had 12 legs. But just imagine like a starburst, but made of black smoke. Mm-hmm. And they would all start to grow and come closer. And then it always happened in the same corner of the room. This big, giant, black, smoky, many tendrilled entity that I can still remember the tendrils coming like down the wall and wanting to like get me out of my body. And I would just be in that sleep paralysis mode and trying to wake up any possible way that I could. And of course, you know, waking up screaming is never fun, but
right, yeah.
I'm sure that you've possibly experienced that. So
I've woken up screaming. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not okay for anybody to feel that. And so I never, for those entities, the eyes would be yellow for me if it did have eyes, if it wasn't the tendrilled ones. And then for my brother, though, he started seeing it. And this is the same brother that shared the 3rd floor space with me. Mm-hmm. But for him, the eyes were red. And he would, you know, it's not funny because, but, you know, I'm 19, 20, 21. And so he's about 8, 9 years younger than me. And he would just come running into my room, you know, and say that I saw it again. It was there. And he had the same deal, sleep paralysis. I don't know if there's ever, like, it's just like a familial thing, but my grandfather had the same thing in that same house. My grandmother's house, of course, my grandfather's house too. He would wake up screaming because he would see something in his room. So I don't know, all these things, I'm getting all emotional here. It's crazy to think about generationally, potentially something going on, you know, and how you could, I don't know, change that. I don't know if you can.
Other than the color of the eyes, was your brother basically describing the same entities then?
So his entity, though, the one that would come to him, he would say would look like a Grim Reaper. His would have the red eyes. He said once that it had the scythe, but his would be the Grim Reaper or that.
I don't know how much you've listened to the show, but we've had all of these on the show before. We've had the squiddy tentacle thing. We've had
Really?
we've had the shadow spiders. We've had the Grim Reaper thing too. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. That's even freakier, you know?
Yeah.
but that's also, Tim, truly, that's part of what really motivated me to write in. I found you guys during, of course, the pandemic, like everybody else.
Mhm.
And I'm still working my way through your episodes, but in hearing that, I guess the strange is a little bit familiar.
Yeah, yeah. I think when people hear like, oh wait, somebody else saw this, they can at least go, okay, I'm not
Okay.
crazy and I'm not alone, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Getting back to Alex, when he saw the little hairy guy in his room,
Mm-hmm.
I had that same thing, but I was so this was at another house, once again, only about 2 miles away from the family house. I was taking a nap, I don't know, one random weekend day, and I had another episode of sleep paralysis. And out of the corner of the living room, this small, hairy being popped up. And I would say no bigger than maybe 2-3 feet, and ran over. And what was even crazier is I could hear his footsteps. Ran over to like the foot of the couch that I was taking a nap on. And, he was covered in long hair, and I don't remember his eyes. But I wasn't scared of him, which is strange for the other things. But I also had never seen this one before, and I haven't seen him since, other than when I had my incident driving into work, and I saw the small hairy beast on the side of the road, but I was awake.
Yeah, yeah. So was that
You know?
after having this sleep paralysis experience?
Yes, so that happened in my 20s. So that happened in 2011. It was in the morning, so I was driving into work probably around 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and taking a back way into work, because I needed a break after working in Baltimore and working with some troubled youth for almost 2 years. So I came back home, and I just got a job working at a local restaurant down at the beach, and never had any strange incidents happen on this road before. But in driving that morning, I am getting up to this area, I guess that's super rural. So lots of fields and trees and marshy areas. And I am getting ready to go through this patch of woods. And there's, like I said, a waterway over to the right of me. And I see this small, hairy, like, it sounds so nuts, but it almost looks like an Ewok, but with long hair, and it with like marshy, grassy, muddy hair, standing next to the guardrail. And I stopped. It was just my car. I slammed the brakes, and I just stopped. And it looked at me, and its eyes, though, holy shit, Tim. You know how I said all my entities had yellow eyes?
Mm-hmm.
Its eyes were yellow.
Mm.
So, not that it was the smoky entity, but...
Did they have, was it like a glow to them, or just solid yellow?
Like a yellow, like a yellow cat's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not shaped like a cat's eye, but
Right,
it was just
right.
a yellow. It was yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And how tall was this?
So it was at the guardrail, but it was easily like 1.5 feet, almost 2 feet higher than the guardrail. So maybe like 4 foot.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, about 4 foot. It looked at me, and I looked at it, and but once again, just like with the sleep paralysis episode, when I saw that small hairy entity I wasn't afraid. And almost, like I said, it was almost like I knew instinctively to kind of like talk to it with my mind rather than, I don't know what else, like honk my horn or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of, like I said, it's these things can be and feel so wild that it's just can be hard to convey, I guess, sometimes. But
What color fur or hair?
So the hair was probably a dark brown, yellow eyes. It had mud, though. It was muddy, and it had grass, too, like grasses in there. I have no idea what it is. I ran to work and like, I just saw an Ewok on the side of the road.
Was the bill bulky like Ewoks?
Not as stocky, but a little bit like leaner. It was a little leaner, if that makes sense. It didn't toddle either because it went back to the woods behind it. So it was facing out into the road, and it just kind of, it went. I don't know how else to explain. I don't want to say it blipped back into the woods, but it moved. It was gone. Like. So it moved quickly.
Okay. But it walked, or?
It almost feels like it took a step back, but I feel like it was forward as well. I don't know how else to describe this weird transition that it did. It just went right back into the woods.
People describe the way these things move as like just weird. Like they're not touching the ground. In a way, like they're walking like an inch above the ground or something, imperceptibly.
Like it was gliding back into the woods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just, how do you, I'm thinking, okay, maybe a raccoon was, I don't know, you try, just like I thought this green phosphorescent thing in the sky was a blimp.
Right.
Like you tried to really make sense of it. I guess some things you just can't.
Did you see its face?
So I remember its eyes, and its face was just as dark and muddy, and it wasn't as if there was any lightness coming through or if there was like less fur or not. It was just dark, and it didn't have like that weird like goofy Ewok right. Kind of like a cuddly thing to it. I just remember that. I mean, it lasted 20 seconds, which is long enough.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it.
Yeah, I guess so. And sorry, the hairy things are like, they're my favorite. Bigfoot, all these hairy creatures. So I ask a million questions. Did you happen to see its hands?
No,
Yeah.
I don't remember its hands.
And honestly,
so I was easily. Go ahead.
Honestly, when you say like I saw its eyes, and like not to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you were kind of focused on the eyes. That happens a lot, where people will see these things and they'll just focus in on one detail, like the mouth or the eyes or the hands or something. So it's not unusual that you're saying like, well, I remember the eyes,
Yeah,
that's not unusual.
I wish, in the haze of it all, that, I could have like clocked all that wonderful stuff. You know what I mean? But it was just wild to me that I wasn't afraid of it. Like that should have been. Well, I guess if you're in a car, maybe you're not going to be too afraid because there's some distance there. But it wasn't as if it was far away from me. I would say 50 feet, 100 foot at most. But still, it was enough that I know it was bipedal. I know that it looked at me. I know that, for however strange it sounds, that we had this understanding that I wasn't going to do anything and it wasn't going to do anything. And then it just kind of did its thing. It moved and glided itself back to where I guess it was coming from. It was just wild.
Woods nearby?
Yes. So it was like it was coming out of the woods.
Yeah.
And that woods also has like a little creek. So that's where that guardrail was. It was effectively like on an embankment. There was a little creek that kind of runs under that or around that road area. Those are my only two hairy things.
That's okay.
But,
I like all the stuff, but I do like the hairy monsters.
The family house. So I would say that incident where I saw this creature on the side of the road, that probably happened only maybe about 8 to 10 miles away from the family house. So, that's, I guess, the furthest one is that we had that waking moment. I keep kind of referring back to this nexus of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So much stuff has happened. So even when we first moved into the house, before we started any renovation, I had just turned 11. And I remember the house, when you came up, we had our 2 rooms. My parents' room was next to me with my brothers. They were younger at that point, so they were still in need of them kind of looking over them and after them while they were sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And then my room. And so I remember I would just be there in bed, and my bed would shake violently, as if it was trying to throw me out.
Wow.
Yeah, and so of course I would run and go right next door, and let my mom know. There were so many things that happened there, even in that same room. So we've always we're animal lovers. Even right now, I'm walking around my 3 cats that are wondering what I'm doing, and why I'm not paying attention to them. They're like, "Excuse me, why are you outside without me?" But we had a cat. And so I was laying down in my bed one day, doing whatever teenagers do, And so I was trying to get myself to sleep, and I felt an animal, my cat, I thought, jump up on the bed. So I turned myself over, and I'm frozen and watching the imprints of cat's paws coming toward me with no cat. And so, of course, once again, I jump up, absolutely frightened after being, completely paralyzed by fear watching this, and go into my mother's room. And then another incident, and I don't know what the deal with the cat was, unless it was the same, I don't know, entity that maybe morphed into whatever else, because it's the same house, just renovated.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just sounds so wild. I keep rattling this off, and I'm so sorry.
This is where I live. So.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad
Bring it.
you're with me. So had that cat incident, and I was, like I said, I just turned 11, so I was probably, moving into 11, 12 range right now, and I had gone into the room, and I'm always a person, just like your wife, I need lights on. Like, it's not happening. I'm not sleeping without a light on. I'm not going into a dark room. No, not going to happen. So I was coming upstairs into that bedroom, and for whatever reason, I didn't turn the light on. And so the light switch was to the right. And so I went to put my hand up to flip the switch, and I looked to the right as well. And in this common space of my bedroom sat a giant black cat with orange eyes. And I had a black and white cat, and that was surely not my cat.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was frozen. I was absolutely frozen. I couldn't do anything else about it. And of course, I flipped the switch. It was not there when the light was back on, which coincides with, as I was talking to my family, my mom says, "Well, remember the dog?" She's like, "I thought someone had broken into our house, because the dog, for like a week after that, would just run upstairs and sit outside of my bedroom and snarl and growl, and would not come away from the edge of my bedroom. I wasn't there. I would be in school or whatever. So this would be in the broad daylight."
Wow.
And my mom would have to pull, his name was Max, he was the best, would have to pull Max from the door of that bedroom. So something is in that house. Something was in that house. It was so active, so active.
The cat thing, the weird thing, like, my mind is just going what places, right? So
Yeah.
what do I know? But I'm sitting here wondering, like, was that, the other, whatever this stuff is, thinking
Yeah.
like, well, she has a pet cat. I'll make myself into a cat and, be more appealing.
Let me get closer this way and appeal in that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely possible. But the things that just happened there and the things that felt unsafe there, and it wasn't even that we had a house full of negativity. If anything, we were extremely close family, but something was there, and I really think something's still there. It's a different energy when you walk into the house, when you're on the ground. So we have about 2.5 acres. So it was an old farmhouse, and we used to have barns up, and we still have one of the barns up. It was a concrete barn. We got rid of the other wooden ones. And in the floor of that concrete barn is, of course, the gentleman who built the home. His son had written his name in the concrete. The date was like 1937 or something like that. And the freaky thing also, while we were doing our renovations, we were finding toys in the walls. And then when we were tearing down part of the fireplace in the old den, we found a picture of a boy, but he was wearing maybe like, I don't know, 60s garb, kind of like the wide lapel, brown checkered coat or whatever. But the strange thing about it was that same brown-haired little boy would show up in spirit constantly. I remember we're coming home one night from a softball game, and it's probably like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I'm driving with my mom. It's just her and I, because she used to coach my teams. And as we're driving into the driveway, we look up onto the second floor because it wasn't fully renovated yet, and that was where my brothers slept. And we saw what we thought was my brother, who had brown hair, and she was upset because he should have been in bed, and what was my stepdad doing, how dare he? So she comes in the house ready to go, right? Why are the kids in bed? This is nuts. And we walk in, and everyone's asleep in the living room on the first floor. No one was awake whatsoever. And so that was just a moment where she was like, there's no way that was your brother staring out the window. I said, he's not, he's right there. And so that was like one of the biggest memories I have of that particular spirit. That was like the biggest, I guess, human spirit there was this. But then again, like with the cat, did we have some weird mimicking entity in this house that just it went for what it thought we would know? And then
I wonder, and of course it doesn't get it right, because
it doesn't get it all the way right.
Yeah. Even when it's trying, it doesn't get it right. There's something off about it. It
doesn't quite. No, it's completely off with it at some point. It's just interesting you bring that up, because now, I can look at it at a different perspective and consider that the possibility. Because it should have been my brother. That should have been who was in that window, and was it maybe a coincidence that later on down the line we found this picture of this brown-haired boy? Possibly. So, of course, because we're having all these encounters and experiences, because it wasn't just me, it was my mom, and then it eventually got to my brothers. My stepdad kind of always stayed a little bit out of it, except for one day the faucets kept turning on, of course. So
that'll get a dad mad.
So, well, yeah. So he's doing work on the house. So that morning, this little boy entity, spirit, whatever it was behind me. So I was coming down getting ready for my day. I was in high school at this point, so I was probably 14, 15. And my mom was, bumbling her way down to get coffee and get herself ready to take me to school. And she's in the kitchen. I'm standing in the kitchen door, and she kind of groggily looks over, and once again, she says, "What is your brother doing awake?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "He's right behind you." And I turn, and of course, inevitably, there's nothing or no one there. And she goes to check, and he's still sleeping. And so we're relaying this later on in the day to my stepfather, and he's like, "No." And we're like, hey, it is happening. The lights are flickering. Their sink is turning on. We're seeing this boy, child, spirit entity. And he's like, laughing at us. And he's kind of standing in the kitchen. And behind him is the kitchen sink. And when I tell you that thing turned on full tilt, the whole neck of it went all the way up. And it just started spurting water out, and he looks at us and we're like, "We told you, man." Like,
wow.
Yeah, that house was wild. That house was absolutely wild. So even, and finding like toys in the walls and pictures of random kids or kid.
Yeah, when his spirit would appear, was he wearing the checkered jacket?
See, no,
okay.
He wasn't. He didn't wear the checkered jacket. He wore a white shirt with like a blue collar.
Interesting.
Yeah, every time. And how he appeared was distinctly younger than that picture specifically of the checkered jacket. But with that house, as we started doing some kind of, I guess, research for whatever you could do in the early 2000s, you know what I mean? We still lived. So effectively, the family that built that house had owned hundreds of acres around that area. So the street that we lived on was actually named after that family that built that house. And so that family's extended family lived down the street still. And so my mother, being the superhero that she is, decided she was going to go knock on this lady's door and ask her. And she was a little hesitant until my mom left her number. And I guess, later on, my mom was able to make contact with this lady. And she effectively relayed that the gentleman that built this house, and that's also why I'm being very careful to call it the family house, because I don't want to say anything that family might get presumably upset about.
Yeah, sure.
But that gentleman was apparently a not so good man with lots of violence and just nastiness to him. So that house presumably saw a lot of not good things. So I don't know if that potentially was the seed or if that fed it. I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not either, other than what the one relative relayed to my mother.
Right.
Orbs were huge at that house. Green orbs and bright orangey pink ones.
Inside or outside?
Inside. So the green ones were always small. So those were always about the size of a baseball. And then they would get smaller. And the green ones would always come close. So this is where the activity started to affect my brothers and I together. So the green ones would come up close. So I had a middle brother and then a baby brother. And so with the baby brother, and the baby brother is also the one that saw the hooded entity. So that green orb would always come up and would blink between him and I. And it would always blink 3 times, and then it would go away.
Oh, wow.
So we had recliners we called it the parlor room or the big room. So we had like a great big living room in the front of the house, and then we had a den in the middle, and then the kitchen. And so him and we would sit in the recliners in the big room, and that green orb would appear between the both of us, blink 3 times and go away. Or it would come to me, being a teenage kid, because that was also the computer room that every cool kid had, and would blink 3 times at me. I was not scared of the green orb, but I was deathly afraid of the pink orange one.
Wow, interesting.
So the pink orange one, instead of blinking, it would almost zigzag, and it would never come close, and it only stayed in the corners of the room. It could be any time of day for the pink orange one, but the most frightening experience that I remember is now the pink orange one. Sounds so, I don't know what else to call it. Sorry. That only appeared when I was with my middle brother. He never saw the green one, and the baby brother never saw the pink orange one. So I don't know if there's connection there or not. So it came out of nowhere, and that one always was large, and that one was about the size of a volleyball. And it was in the corner of the room. We had like a built-in bookcase, and it just started wildly zigzagging in this corner. And my brother and I, so it was just him and I home. I was watching him, and we were frozen, absolutely just terrified, because what is that? What is going on? And the way that it moved towards us was so just menacing. I don't know that an orb could be menacing, but I just know that it didn't feel good. It didn't feel like the green one that was kind of like visiting to say hello.
Right.
It felt angry. And the odd thing is when that one would always show up, it would show up whole as this big volleyball size light, and it would always move around the bookcase. And then eventually what we found behind that bookcase was actually an empty room, and it had stairs that went nowhere.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so your mind starts to race when you put together the potential history of this house and the potential violence that took place. And then you start thinking about these toys in the walls and in the crawl space for like basins for somebody to wash up in. And then you find this room that's been sealed off with a bookcase that has stairs to kind of nowhere. And this angry orange light that's just mad. I don't know, man. I don't know what happened at this house. I just know that it's almost like it collects whatever it is that is there, or maybe it wants to collect. I don't know.
Why do you wall off a room, right? Can't, like, everybody can use a little more space, right?
Right. Yeah,
like,
a little square footage is always nice.
Yeah,
so.
but why do you wall off? Like, that's a weird thing to do, right? Like,
it's odd.
Yeah.
It's odd, but this house was so weird. And it's still a strange house. Like, whatever possessed. And my stepfather built this house. So he just started building and building and building. We were only supposed to have a little bit of a bigger addition for a bedroom and a bigger bathroom. And he decided to go up and up. And to the point where he ended up building a tower at the top of the house. For like what? You know what I mean? Like,
that's kind of awesome.
Like,
I've always had a dream of having like a tower with my art table at
Absolutely.
the top. Just have my art room up at the top of the tower.
Well, listen, You could have. So, you know what? That was kind of like his thing too. He's like, well, I could play my guitar out there, man.
When you moved to Baltimore, did weird stuff follow you?
It's funny you said that. I was thinking about if anything did or may have followed me to Baltimore. And I had a few sleep episodes there that I don't know that it wasn't the usual swirly, spidery things, but that's where I started, really trying to figure out how to actually control that part of it. But in Baltimore, it was as weird as it sounds. And maybe it was, I don't know, moving away for the first time, but I could not be at the family house. And maybe it was a homesick thing, but the only time I felt actually comfortable not being at the family house was when I first moved up there, I actually moved to Cecil County.
Mm-hmm.
And are you familiar with the Elkton area?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I had the most wild experience of bluish white orbs in the woods there.
Mm.
Yeah, so my friend, I don't know how I keep finding these places where people have large swaths of land. My friend's family owned 100 acres, and the family had effectively 11 kids, so each kid got roughly about 10 acres of land. And so I actually was able to live in this beautiful valley-like area right next to, I think it's called Turkey Point is the park up there. Kind of butts up against whatever land that they had.
Mm-hmm.
That was the most comfortable. I felt like I didn't have to be back at the family house. And so I was able to actually, and this sounds so weird that I had to think about staying away from the house, but I was able to stay away from the house. I didn't go visit for 2-3 months. I stayed there. I was good. I had it was a split level house, and they had an extra, apartment. And so I was on that bottom floor, and my friend actually got me the job when I in Baltimore. So, we worked together, and we actually had a night shift. We had to go check on the kids that we were effectively responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was waiting for her, so I had stepped out, and this was probably, so their curfew was, they had to be in their apartments at midnight. So we would have left easily at 10:45 just to be safe. It was only a 45-minute drive, but so I guess probably close around 10:45, 11, I was waiting for her outside, and I see these, I guess, will-o'-the-wisps, right? These blue, beautiful bluish white lights kind of in the woods. Like I said, even this house that I'm in now, and I've only been here for about a year, and so I just got here, and I'm in the Seaford, Delaware area, and I have the Nanticoke River literally in my backyard. So I'm standing on my back porch right now, and I can see it. And once again, I don't have anything historical to back it up, but this house has some weird stuff going on, and my sleep paralysis kicked off really crazy here.
Mm.
But here, I was able to, this sounds so crazy and wild, when I would leave my body here, and actually even at the last location, at the last house I was at, it was almost like I would go astrally somewhere else. I don't know how else to explain it, but everything had a purple pink hue to it, and it was almost like the people that saw me, so it would be daytime when I would leave my body, and everything was purpley pink, and the people that saw me there in that space, so strange. I don't know how else to explain it. They knew I wasn't supposed to be there. It's the weirdest thing. So the history of this house. So last October, so effectively like right when we got here, I was, for whatever reason, I'm up like almost every other night around 3:00 in the morning, like, boom, wake up. So I'm up and I'm trying to get myself to fall asleep. And of course, what better way to fall asleep than to turn the TV on and watch, whatever show.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm watching TV and I don't know, I'm watching some kind of something and I hear it screaming. And I'm like, is that the show? And of course, like, I'm listening and I hear it louder and louder. But long story short, my neighbor's house is burning down.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
And yeah, so my brain turns off. I don't even know what I was thinking. So instead of, being a rational individual and going out my door to help them, I just jump out my bedroom window because my bedroom window is closer to their house.
First floor?
First floor, thank
Okay.
God.
Okay.
First floor, all one story. So I jump out the window because that makes, it's totally helpful, right? So, like no shoes, no nothing, man. Just go out the window. And so there's also this patch of woods between us, and I have no shoes on, and whatever, like I'm going through it. And so, God bless them. It was terrifying. The neighbor and I ran into the house to get the grandfather out, then the mom and dad were.
You ran into a burning house without shoes on?
I surely did. Yeah.
Anything goes down, I want you around. That's all right.
Yeah, I got you. So, like, you don't know how you're ever going to react to anything like that.
Sure, yeah. Until it happens, you don't know. Yeah.
Until, you know what I mean? And the fact that, like, my crazy brain was like, well, this is happening. Let's do this.
Wow.
So it's freezing. They're all in, completely disheveled and watching their house that they've had for decades. I mean, this guy built his house like 1972. Mm-hmm. And it's burning to the ground. And they have animals. So we get the grandfather out. We find the dog and the guinea pig. I still have the guinea pig.
Really? That's great.
Like, still have the guinea pig. So, long story short, they don't have anywhere to go. So I'm like, well, you're coming to my house. I bring them in. I get them clothed because all of their clothes are either completely sooted or they didn't have any on. I don't know what the hell is going on. But either way, I get everybody taken care of. And we had to flag down the fire truck because the crazy thing about both of our houses is you can't see us from the road. So we're kind of down in a way. Mm-hmm. After I got them settled and watered and whatever they needed to kind of process out what the hell just happened, because I'm still adrenalized, from everything.
Sure, yeah.
They were with me for a little bit until we were able to get them settled into a hotel, but they turned to me, and I had never met these people before. They just said, is this house haunted? And I was like, why? Because when you're in the backyard at this house, something will throw stones at you. Huh. Something. You'll have pebbles just be thrown. And I'm like, of course, once again, trying to rationalize this. Maybe it's a bird that builds a stone nest, whatever, and it dropped it. So they asked me if the house is haunted. I'm like, I didn't see anything. I just got here. Like, I said, but the weird thing is that in the fireplace, I had found a statue of Pan in the fireplace. Right. And like, I didn't think that Pan was anything fire related, but I did know that I needed to be careful of that.
Yeah, that's an odd little detail. Yeah.
Well, right. And so I immediately didn't feel comfortable with it. And I did not know why it was there. I didn't understand because it was hanging from the flute of the fireplace. Yeah.
That's a weird place. Like, so could you see it, or did you have to like get into the fireplace to actually see
I
it?
had to get into it. So
yeah, that's weird.
It's weird, right? Mm-hmm. And so I actually might have even potentially kicked off something. So I think I had all of that energy of them coming in. And then they tell me that apparently the lady that built this house was murdered in the backyard. She was killed. And I'm going, there's no possible way. But then I relayed to them about finding the pan in the fireplace. So apparently the lady, she was an elderly woman by the time that this happened, and she had a caregiver that would come and help her around the house, do chores, and run errands for her. And this caregiver had gotten into some trouble, but was effectively trying to get himself together. And so the older woman effectively invited him to come and do yard work here. So gave him a little cash here and there just to try to help him get on his feet. And apparently the son, one day, unbeknownst to his mother, who was the original caregiver, came with a few friends. And by a few, I mean, this is, of course, being relayed to me by people who just went through an extremely traumatic event. And lured this elderly woman outside. He was talking to her about how he kind of wanted to cut the shrubbery and how, because like I said, the dock and the river is right in the backyard. And I guess he lured her down there and shot her.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so he could rob her, stole her jewelry, her, anything of value. I had not told them about the experience I had. I have a son. I have a 10-year-old. And so my 10-year-old was here, and I was in the bedroom, and I had seen him walk outside. And he had on his black hoodie, and he walked past the bedroom window. And I came. Now, the rule is periods, because we have the river, because you're 10. If you're going outside, you need to let me know.
Right.
And so I had come out of my bedroom to come get him and to let him know about it. And he was still sitting in the living room. And so this house is it doesn't feel negative inside the house, but distinctly, you can feel something happening in the backyard area. And that was before I found out about this potential crime, because of course I'm trying to do any research on it and I can't find anything. And I wasn't going to bother these people that are going through this entire life upheaval. Hey, can you give me the details of, you know what I mean? I wasn't going to do that. So I might, later on down the line, once they're settled, ask them a little bit more, especially the grandfather. I see him quite a bit. I might kind of poke around a little bit more there, but there's definitely some kind of weirdness going on. And of course, just me, there's some kind of weirdness going on with me anyway.
I mean, I hate saying it to people, but I sometimes what I ask is do you think it's maybe you're the one who's haunted?
It has to be.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah.
So I'll end it with this, because I promise I won't keep, perseverating, because that spider web that you had talked about, how you just, as you're talking, you go, and I remember this, you know what I mean? These things keep kind of coming back and coming back.
Yeah,
it's just been a lifetime.
Very difficult to tell a linear story about this stuff because it's connected in so many ways.
Well, and you're a saint, because you put it together in a beautifully succinct way that while I'm listening, I'm there. I'm there with you. I'm there with them. I can see what they're talking about. So thank you for taking something that can be so circumspect, something that can be so ineffable, and putting words to it for people.
Goodness.
I appreciate that.
Thanks so much. That means a lot.
No, it means a lot what you do. So here, with my sleep paralysis, I've been able to come out of my body a little bit, but mainly I've been visited 3 times by this one entity, and I've never seen her before, and I haven't seen her since. I haven't seen her probably for about 2 months now. And it's so weird. And it's so, I'm just going to go out and say, I'm just putting it, hey, as I've said a bunch of crazy stuff already, so let me just put it out there. I have been visited by this frog woman. I know.
No. I'm very interested. No, I'm pausing because I'm taking every detail in. Go ahead.
Okay. And it is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. This is the first time within sleep paralysis where something feels so distinctly like real. She's there. I know she is. I feel insane when I see her. Like I said, about 2 months ago was the last time I saw her, and she was at the foot of my bed, and the foot of my bed faces the river. I don't know if she's connected to the river, but the first time I saw her, and I say frog woman because her hair is muddied, but she's got like a human enough face, and she's at the foot of my bed, but her arms and legs are elongated like a frog, and she's got webbed fingers. It's like this weird half human amphibious being. And I had mentioned this to a family member, and they said, oh, what did they call her? She's Faye. They said, is that La Garuna? Which is like a Faye, half woman, half frog lady. And of course my brain's like, I don't know. I have no idea. But she's shown up 3 times now, always at the foot of my bed. The first time she stood very still, and she was, right there at the foot of my bed, but kind of in the middle of the room. And then the other 2 times she's at the foot of the bed, and then she almost dissipates. She moves to the other side of the room very quickly, as if there's like a way for her to get in and out there. Like that's the only way for her to get in and out. I don't know how to explain it other than that. I don't know. And I'm trying to figure out what this is. Is this Fae? Is this native? Any kind of folklore? Because of course, there's lots of folklore around the frog and water, and, depending upon whatever tribe affiliation it may be, and their myths and their stories. But, I'm just starting to kind of poke around there, but that's been the wildest. I don't know. So, maybe
Fascinating.
Maybe it is me that's haunted. Maybe it's me that is open enough, and maybe I'm walking around in all these areas and I'm charging something, and maybe I'm opening these weird little doors.
Yeah, chicken and egg, you know what I mean? Maybe you're drawn to these areas that have stuff happening without knowing it, without realizing it consciously. Maybe you're a key, to unlock something. I don't know.
You never want to put yourself as anything, well, here I am, look what I...
Right, and that's what I always say. I always say it's not, no one has magic powers, right?
No.
I always make that clear. But just like drawing or music or something, it comes easier to some people, I think. And I think that's what happens. I think just some people can access it easier than others. It's not that anybody has special abilities or anything like that.
Yeah.
So is she wearing clothes, this frog woman?
I could hear the smile in that question.
I know that I wrote in my, I don't know what number book it was, in my book, Don't Look Behind You. I was called by a woman. It was after midnight one night. This woman called my phone and said, she says, you write about Toad Road? I'm like, yeah. And she started telling me stories. And she's telling me various stories of it. But she gets to the end of her stories and says, the thing you had to really be worried about was the frog or the toad man. She says, but the toad man. I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, the toad man. lived down there in the creek. It was an actual toad man. And I was like, whoa.
Ow.
And now, like, when I was writing my first book, my friend told me something his father saw, and I put it down as like a Bigfoot thing because I didn't know what else to put it down as. But the way he described it, he said it was like squatting in the road, and his father saw this thing, and he said his father would never be clear. He was like, he's like, I can't tell you what it was. I don't know what it was. You know, it was humanoid, but beyond that, he's like, it shouldn't have been there, kind of thing.
It shouldn't have been there. And that's, like, when I first saw her, I could not wrap my brain around what it was about her at first. Like, I knew she was not fully human. I don't know if she had clothes on I just remember seeing, you know, how a toad or a frog's belly would be lighter.
Mm-hmm.
So it, you know, my brain wants to say, oh, it was kind of like a white t-shirt, but it might have very easily just been the whiteness of the belly. But she's human sized. It's not, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And she was she has been so distinctly there. Whether there is in this other realm that I'm glimpsing for a moment. Once again, she didn't scare me. And so then I was like, well, maybe that was that La Garuna or whatever, that Fae. I think that's like a Brian Froud piece there. But, you know, something helps us at this house. So things will apport constantly. We'll ask for it if we lose it, and it will just be laying on one of our tables.
Isn't that amazing? Like, that's such an amazing thing. Like,
it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. Like it's helpful. And so it's this weird dichotomy of whatever negativity might be happening out in that yard area, inside this house space, there's this helpfulness to it. So here, let me give you another help. And maybe this is wild too, but my partner and I just experienced this in August. We had a flight out of BWI at 6:25 that was departing. So we needed to be boarding by 5:55, right?
Mm-hmm.
We live Seaford, Delaware, right? We missed our alarm and woke up at 4:00 in the morning.
Wow.
Tim, wait. We didn't leave here until roughly 4:30, 4:40 in the morning. We had to get the dog walked. We had to get the cats fed. We had to get everything. We had to get the luggage in the car. We had to get dressed. We were freaking out. How were we going to make it leaving Seaford at 4:30, 4:40 in the morning and making it to Baltimore, parking the car, getting into the airport, getting to our plane and boarding, right? How is this going to happen? It shouldn't, right?
Right. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Time is not adding up here. We should have called it in. We said, nope, we're going to do it. I don't know what, and you can ask her, I don't know what happened on this road. We're driving. We leave our driveway. We take a left out. We're going down the road, and the street lights are on because it's still, 4:00 in the morning, 4:30, 4:40 in the morning. And then we get to a point where I look at her and she looks at me, and we said, what's happening? Because the street lights kept repeating themselves. And the road that normally takes us maybe 3 to 4 minutes to traverse felt like it took us 15, 20 minutes. Because we kept passing the same street light in the same house, and the same street light in the same house. And we're looking at each other like, what is happening? When I tell you we made it to that airport and we got on that plane at boarding time, I don't know how we did it.
Wow.
It was wild. But something helps us here. I swear to God, I don't know what it was. I don't know if there was guardian angels that said, no, you're making it though. I don't know how that happened, I still haven't fully processed how weird that is. Because I tried to do the math. It shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Like, we should have missed the flight.
Especially
We should
now
have
with like
missed the flight. The security,
yeah, the
parking,
security checks.
parking at BWI, and you have to catch a bus.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
You can't just like stroll up.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I
if you
flew
need
out
to
of there
park and then catch a bus.
a couple years ago. Yeah. I had to park the car, get a shuttle. Yeah.
Get up there. Yeah. Shouldn't have happened, man. I don't know. I am so blown by it. It's so crazy. But anyhow, so you know what? Maybe Frog Lady's good luck. I don't know. And maybe she's helping me out. And maybe just, you know, the strangeness and otherness of it all, I get to kind of peek it a little bit. And so there's a fortunate nature there to that. I don't know. And maybe even seeing the scary stuff. I was about to use another 4-letter word. Maybe seeing the scary helps me, I don't know, understand the scary that's in front of me every day sometimes, you know,
maybe.
and whatever it is, you know, I don't want to have to even get deeper or it's just all wild. And I appreciate you reaching out, at least letting me kind of ramble things off to you.
Oh,
you
no,
know?
no. I'm fascinated. I'm probably going to end up drawing this Frog Lady. So she had hair.
Yes. So she had shoulder length, like brown, wispy hair. But imagine in those wisps, there was like it was almost as if she took the mud and ran it down like a few strands of hair.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And how do you does she just have like feminine features? How do you know it's a woman?
She felt she felt feminine in her energy, and her face was more human. It was shaped more human, but she did have like the wider mouth. And I don't know why I just call her she. It was a lady.
I mean, that's valid. You saw it. You experienced it. I mean,
it's wild, you know. And like I said, I looked up like frog woman entity, and they have like I think it's Hecate, the Egyptian frog goddess, but she had a frog face in a woman's body, and this was the opposite. This was like a woman's face with like a frog's body, but she was standing up. So, but her legs were still bent like a frog, and her arms were long, like I said, and she had like that long forearm and webbed hands.
So
and her hands, her hands were not like, they were kind of by her side, but up a little bit. It just was wild. I don't know. And then with the other 2 times that she has come, she blinked in very quickly. Whereas the first time, it was almost as if she was standing there to make sure I saw it. I saw her, and I knew she was there, and then she was gone. She didn't move like she did the other 2 times. The other 2 times she was at the foot of the bed again, but she moved. It was just, I don't know why she's moving.
It's hard. It's hard not to connect it to the river, right?
Well, it's hard not to.
Yeah, yeah. What's the name of the river again?
It's the Nanacoke.
Okay, like the native tribe. Same spelling.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm gonna do a little research and see what I can find. Because after the woman told me about the Toadman story, which I thought like maybe this is a little too much, right? Then I was doing some research, and I found an article from, I think it was like 1909 or something, from about 2 miles away, basically from where she's saying, up the river, where people had talked about what they called a fish man walking out of the river. And I was like, how different is a toad man from a fish man? You know what I mean?
From a fish man.
Yeah.
I would love to know if you find something out, let me know.
One more time, like just to go back to one more thing you said, because I just can't leave it. The pebbles that get thrown at you every time you're in the backyard, or is it just random?
It's randomly. It's not every time. But in our yard, we have a garage, and then there's a lean-to in the back where I guess they would keep wood for the fireplace or whatever else. And it always comes from back there. So they get thrown from almost like over the garage. And it's hit the cars a few times.
Did you ever pick one up?
One of the pebbles? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm holding one in my hand right now.
Were they warm to the touch when you picked them up?
I don't know.
If you didn't notice, then maybe not. But that's
then maybe not. No, I did not notice that at all. It's just a regular pebble. I mean, we're on a river. It's just it's a rock, know. But they get thrown.
Interesting.
And yeah, it's like this place is alive in this weird sense.
Casey, thank you so much for sharing your stories.
Listen, I appreciate you and your time, and I appreciate the work that you do. So thank you so much for everything.
I want to thank our patrons. Thank you, patrons. We could not do Strange Familiars without you. You help us make the show. Without our patrons, we could not make Strange Familiars. If you like the content we make and you'd like to get more, you can become a patron as well at Patreon. Patreon.com/strangefamiliars. Our patrons get 2 full extra episodes of Strange Familiars every month. We've already done one for October, our first on-site show in a long time. Chad and I went out to Cador State Park. Who knows what else we'll come up with for this Halloween month. And our patrons, again, patreon.com/strangefamiliars. There's different tiers of support. There's options to pay monthly or yearly. Whatever tier you choose, whichever billing option you choose, you're helping us make Strange Familiars. Patreon.com/strangefamiliars.
Are you fascinated by UFOs, the occult, strange history, and more? On October 14th through the 16th at SIR Nashville, the Strange Realities Conference 2022 will take place. 3 days of exploring the mysteries of the supernatural, history, UFOs, the occult, and much, much more. Featuring presentations by Steve Berg, Micah Hanks, John Tinney, Adam Gorightly, Tim Banal, Christopher Ernst, Samantha Engel, Recluse, Nathan Isaac, Melody Blackthorn, Dr. Future, Soraya Askath, Timothy Ritter, Aaron Gulius, Delaney Bowers, Olaf Phillips, and David Metcalf. With workshops by Kiki Dombrowski, Ren Collier, and Michael Hughes. Come join us in Nashville or online. Tickets are available at strangerealitiesconference.com. Find out what everyone is talking about.
Continuing our Halloween-themed Curiosities, I have here yet another stereo view, Allison.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not sure it's specifically Halloween, but it is a masquerade party.
Oh, the kids are dressed up like adults.
The Children's Masquerade.
You know what this reminds me of? And this is... This is ridiculous. Do you remember the Star Trek episode about the Grups? About they land on the planet where the kids are in charge and there's like no one beyond the age of 18 or 19 that's still alive?
Yeah, that's a deep cut.
Somehow that reminds me of this Victorian era masquerade stereo view.
Yeah. When would you say that's photos from, Allison?
I would say turn of the century, like 1890s to 1900 maybe.
All right. We're going to go with that because you're pretty good at sussing these things out. It's the Children's Masquerade stereo view. You can see an image of this in the show notes. If you click on that, it'll take you to our Etsy shop where you can purchase this and other Curiosities of the Week. Also at our Etsy shop, t-shirts, the traditional blue Awoken Tree Strange Familiars logo t-shirt, but also glow-in-the-dark Awoken Tree shirts, copies of my books, artwork. You can buy originals and prints, Strange Familiar stickers, patches, and much more. Our shop name is Lost Grave, but if you type in Strange Familiars, you should see our stuff come up. While you're on Etsy, Chad's shop is Ruck Rabbit Outdoors, and our friends at Karmic Garden have all kinds of neat, wonderfully smelling things. So check them out as well. Well, I have to go prepare for Albatwitch Day.
All right, it's going to take a couple more days apparently.
I think so. A reminder one more time, Albatwitch Day is this Saturday, October 8th in Columbia, Pennsylvania at the Columbia Riverfront. If you can make it out, we'd love to see you. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back soon with more Strange Familiars. Strange Familiars is a production of
Dark Holler Arts.
Music, Books, Art, Podcasts, and more. Intro and background music is by
Stone Breath.
If you want to hear more or purchase music by Stone Breath, you can go to stonebreath.bandcamp.com. Strange Familiars is on Facebook, facebook.com/
Strange Familiars?
where you can join the Strange Familiars gathering group. Strange Familiars is also on Instagram at
Strange Familiars.
one word, no underscore. Please give us a follow. And you can find us on the web at
Strangefamiliars.com.
Mountain of the grinning land,
Desert storms with songs of God. Locusts swarm on crop and sun. And candles drip their wax on sand. With flames by black wings fanned. Just beyond the candles dance, shadows held in flickering trance, a subtle glow, a stranger sight.